never thought that Eugene McCarthy had a chance of deposing him as the Democratic nominee in 1968. He thought that Robert Kennedy might.
People in the anti-war movement and people who are dissatisfied with LBJ come to Bobby and they say, "You've got to run." And Bobby just doesn't want to do it.
I said that I'm not interested and I'm not going to run, and that it's a source of embarrassment.
He's afraid of tearing up his own party. He's afraid
Yeah,
it might
that's
not
right.
win. That would sully the legacy of JFK.
But when McCarthy stuns the president by a strong showing in the New Hampshire primary, getting 42% of the vote, Kennedy starts to reconsider.
The remarkable New Hampshire campaign of Senator Eugene McCarthy has proven how deep are the present divisions within our party and within our country.
4 days later, Kennedy enters the race.
I run to seek new policies. Policies to end the bloodshed in Vietnam and in our cities. Policies to close the gaps that now exist between black and white, between rich and poor, between young and old, in this country and around the rest of the world.
The McCarthy people are infuriated because they've done the advance work, so to speak. They've done well in New Hampshire when Bobby was hanging back, and now here comes Bobby to steal his thunder.
There was an aura about him. He was the brother of the assassinated president, and he represented the hope that others had felt when Jack Kennedy was president.
What was your response that you got back from President Johnson when you sent word to him? Was there any?
Johnson recognizes that the mood of the country has turned against him. On March 31st, he makes a stunning announcement.
I shall not seek, and I will not accept the nomination of my party for another term as your president.
I don't know an analogy comparable to that, because you had the President of the United States saying that he was retiring from politics. So suddenly the world opened, and it was thrilling.
Emerson once said that if a young man plants himself on his instincts and there abides, the world will come around to him. I ask for your help to change the face of the United States and to help mankind. Thank you very much.
I don't think people felt that Gene McCarthy would ever be elected president, but Robert Kennedy absolutely stood a pretty good chance in ending the Vietnam War, among other things.
In addition to his opposition to the war, Kennedy addresses the racial strife roiling the country. On April 4th, 1968, he's on his way to campaign in an African-American section of Indianapolis when he learns that Martin Luther King Jr. has been assassinated. The responsibility falls on Kennedy to inform the crowd about the tragedy.
I have some very sad news for all of you, and I think sad news for all of our fellow citizens and people who love peace all over the world. And that is that Martin Luther King was shot and was killed tonight.
He got up on the bed of a truck, surrounded by angry people. And that night he talked about why it was important for us to remember Martin Luther King Jr.'s message of nonviolence. And people listen.
For those of you who are black and are tempted to be filled with hatred and distrust, I had a member of my family killed, but he was killed by a white man.
The assassination of his brother was not something that he would easily talk about. And the fact that he would bring that up was showing in a public way the depth of his...
What's going on, Holy Conejito? Conejito.
Say a prayer for the family of Martin Luther King. Yeah, it's true. But more importantly, to say a prayer for our own country.
It is one of the great speeches in American history, not one word of it provided by a speechwriter. This came from his heart.
Mrs. King and her children left their home before midnight for one last look at her husband's body before the funeral this morning. There will be a small private service at the church. Afterwards, about